Hello, beautiful, intuitive parents. I am dropping in here today with a personal share, something that has come up for me over the past couple of weeks, just doing my own personal development work. And so I really wanted to drop in and share this because I received some very potent downloads and channelings that actually speak to the broader kind of sense of what's happening in the world right now with our kids, and something that I really felt was important. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Emily Robinson. I'm the founder of Intuitive Parents, Intuitive Kids. Everything that I teach in Intuitive Parents, Intuitive Kids is very much a kind of culmination of what I have learned through my own healing, doing self-development work, working with my own clients, homeschooling my kids. And I really spend a lot of time with the earth, doing a lot of shamanic work. And of course, it's no surprise that in doing that work, I channel an awful lot of high vibrational light codes, star seeds, beings from within the earth. And over the years have really kind of gotten used to just channeling this guidance and then being able to use it in a way that supports us, for myself, obviously with my own children, but also for the greater good, in a bigger way. So basically, this began because I was struggling with some control stories and also some abandonment stories from when I was younger. And I spoke to Sarah, our beautiful personal development mentor, and said, can I please have an SRA session? So for those of you that are new to this concept, I actually created a healing modality called the Soul Resonance Alignment Healing Method. And I was like, man, I really need a session. I need some support with this. And so Sarah gave me a session, and it was really profound. It dug up some great stuff for me to kind of lean into and really sit with and look at from a different lens. And after that session, I went away and actually was doing some inner work on these patterns and stories. And one of the things that came up for me was about when I was younger. Obviously, this is my memory that's coming to me, but it's also just energetic. So I have this memory that I was in a house. It was before I was 2, and it was when my brother was going to be born. And I had this sense of abandonment, that my parents had gone to the hospital and left me behind. And I was left with my grandparents, who I loved. So it wasn't like, oh my God, it was traumatic and awful. But as a 22-month-old baby or toddler, I took on feelings at that point that I obviously wasn't good enough. And so I had been working on this story with Sarah, and I had really been leaning into it. And I sat in my garden, which is where I do a lot of my own processing, really connecting into the earth. And it was really profound, because rather than me just doing some work in that moment, I actually went back through some generational trauma. So as I was in this memory, I was watching it play out, and I saw my gran at the time, this is my mum's mum, kind of come and pick me up and was, trying to kind of soothe me. And obviously my parents had gone and I was upset. And I could feel that there was no connection. Like, she couldn't actually love me. She couldn't actually hold my feelings in that moment. And I know that just through talking with my mum, that there are generational things that have happened that have caused some disjointed feelings of that love and connection piece. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I then started going back through the generations to find out, where did this begin? I ended up going back 13 generations. And that, obviously, for me, this is pretty normal stuff. Like, this is not abnormal. This is, how I sit and process and very much kind of lean into the stories and to see what's shifting and what energy I can move around. And in this, kind of being in this space, all of a sudden I could feel myself connecting in with some beings from higher spaces. And all of a sudden I was like, shunk, okay, here we go. There was a whole heap of channeling that started to come through. And I got visions of this lifetime and various different bits and pieces, but it was a bit like a dream. Like, for me, I don't really like latch on to what I see. It's more about the feelings in my body. So I really wasn't paying too much attention to the visual or where I was. I knew at one point I was like in ancient China as a child. and I was given this pearl, like a pearl, you know, I don't know why I'm doing it like that, tiny little pearl. And it was like a pearl of wisdom that was given to me for my heart. And I was to carry this pearl of wisdom. And all through the generations, this has got dimmer and dimmer and dimmer as it's been more repressed. But in this energy of this lineage of the 13 generations, what actually came up for me was this whole collective story. And I started channeling this collective story about how repressed we've been with regards to our feelings and our emotions. And for those of you that connect in with the whole story of oppression and very much like the patriarchal way of being and the, you know, kind of oppression of femininity and your voice and, you know, concepts like the witch trials and the witch hunts and being burned. And some of us have past lives that we've had that experience. Personally, for me, I've never really resonated with a lot of that storyline. Like it's not something that's ever triggered me, but that doesn't mean that I'm not carrying it for the collective. And this is what was coming through, that really as females, particularly because I was working on the female line through my mum and then her mum and going back these generations, but it doesn't mean that there aren't boys now that are having this energy as well. It was really, you know, if we showed emotion, we were weak and we were pathetic and we essentially were owned. You know, we had no rights as women. You know, we were possessions of the men. And that feeling of being really penned into a container is so much pressure on our nervous system. So much pressure on the emotions, the feelings. And so what was coming up for me was this inner rage, like just so much anger. And it just started to all pour out about how worthless we have been made to feel because we have been possessed. We are possessions. We don't have any rights. And also about our feelings of spiritual connection, that was perceived as bad or wrong or extremely dangerous. And so there was a huge amount of fear around our emotions and what we could generate with energy and how we could move emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. And so this energy in motion that we as females are able to utilize was very dangerous and it was to be shut down. And this is where the whole stories about the witch hunts come in, because if you were somebody who could, you know, technically cultivate energy, even if you weren't aware of it, even if it was just through being emotional, that was a no-go. You were not to speak, you were not to show emotion, you were just to be pretty much like dead, walking dead. And that is the level of containment that we've been holding for years and years and years and years. And so every power we had, every gift, you know, was cut away, was, you know, beaten out of us. And I'm just looking down because I'm just reading the notes that I wrote. But, you know, even things like babies as well. This was what was coming through in this channeling, was how babies that cried a lot would have been drowned because they were noisy, because they were expressive, because they were not silenced. And so, you know, the patriarchy silenced them for you. They would have been ripped away and they just would have been killed. And so there was just this feeling that any expression of emotion was witchcraft, was bad, was the devil, whatever label they wanted to put on it to completely shut that down. And so as I was sitting with all of this, I was like, holy shit, I have done a lot of work channeling the inner earth. So very often people are channeling, you know, the Galactic Federation or starseed beings or energies from the kind of more of the higher realms and the star, you know, different planetary alignments. And sometimes I channel that stuff, but I also have spent a lot of time going into the earth, working with Lemurians and the Atlanteans. And there are so many children who are being reborn onto the planet that are not necessarily star seeds, but are actually coming from the inner earth. They're being reborn back onto the planet's surface because they're healing the inside of the earth through their rebirthing. So I've been aware of this for a good number of years now. But this channeling that came through the other day was like, oh my God, these kids are actually here to be louder than ever, to be really heard, like really like overly emotional, overly like expressive, because they could never do that. So there's all this repression of anger, rage, vocalization, noise. And so many parents at the moment are talking to me about their kids having these epic tantrums, like these full on screaming, you know, self-harming, like it's uncontrollable tantrums. And I really sat with this during the channeling, and I was like, wow, that's actually the feelings I have. I have those feelings within me, and I haven't been able to really express them. And so actually, like my daughter Bella, she's 4, she has, you know, this PDA, ASD kind of condition that, not that I want to put a label on it, but has, you know, means she has these explosive tantrums and anger and rage and, you know, scratching herself and ripping out her hair. And I'm like, wow, this is a healing of the collective energy. So she is actually showing me that, oh my God, you have this anger and rage within you. You can actually process this, and you can do it in a really positive, contained way that isn't like, you know, coming out sideways, which is sometimes what happens with our kids when we are enraged, like, why are you not listening, or whatever the thing is that they've done, and we're just absolutely boiling over because we're not learning how to express this anger and this rage and all these emotions that have been shoved down for generations. And so really, this is a shift in consciousness. This is a massive shift and trajectory change in the consciousness that our children are coming here to show us. And I've known this from other channelings that I've had, that the children are coming in to push our buttons. And I've done other videos about this, about the star seeds, and about how they are actually here to show us our own stuff. Look how you're triggering me. Look how this is coming up. You know, that's the gift that they're bringing. But this was like a whole new layer about the emotion that needs to be expressed, that needs to come out. Our kids need to be able to learn how to harness this emotional explosion in a way that obviously isn't self-harming and isn't actually, you know, trashing things, which is what my beautiful Bella likes to do. And even my son at the moment is struggling with his emotions, and, you know, he's 11, and it's really hard to teach him now to drop into his body. But it's something that I'm working on all the time, is how do we keep expanding, keep opening, keep allowing this energy, this emotion to move through us, because that's what needs to happen. So I thought this was so interesting, because the earth needs to open up in order for the vibration and the consciousness to rise. And we know that if we're in this awakened space, we know that we're in a place where, you know, the awakening is happening. The vibration of the earth is increasing. The Schumann resonance is changing. There is more light coming onto the planet. These solar flares, the light codes that are dropping in is huge. And then we're looking at our kids going, oh my God, there are so many kids now with behavioral problems, with emotional issues. And I'm like, yes, but this is by design. This is actually by design, because they are allowing the energy that we generationally have been holding onto to finally come out, to finally be free. And it's our job as the parents to move with them, to rise up into that higher consciousness, into this higher vibration. And you know what that looks like? It looks like us as the parents feeling our own rage, feeling our own anger, not in the moment when we're losing it with our kids, or our husband or our work colleague or whoever it is, but actually allowing ourselves in a really safe environment to let this out, you know, to swamp, to be in the emotional debris of all of it, the stuff that we're probably not even aware is there. So, you know, this is about no longer being silenced, moving up into the new level of vibrations, starting to live from a place of truth and power, stepping out of the matrix. What else did I get? The inner earth children are coming back to be reborn on the planet and letting out all of this emotion. And it's healing and clearing karmic patterns, not just for us as the humans, but for the whole earth plane. So if you're someone who is like, oh my God, yes, my kids are in this space, it is tough. It is tough. I am not for 1 minute saying that we need to disregard the fact that as a parent, it is incredibly hard to watch your children go through these experiences. But what I can say is that there is a bigger purpose, there is a bigger reason, and that if you can really hold the space in yourself to notice where this is in you as well, where you're holding, because this is generational. This isn't just about your kids. This is about what are they triggering in me that I can rise with them. I can step into these higher vibrations so that, you know, the whole consciousness of the planet is shifting. And that's what this is really about. It's not just about us as the little one dot, you know, the grain of sand in the ocean. You know, it's about the collective. And that's, you know, IPIK's work has always been about, you know, raising the collective consciousness, one family at a time, just moving through this energetic shift. And I'm really holding, you know, all of you in this beautiful love and light, and the realization that, wow, our kids are actually here to support this process and actually allow this energy to shift. So if you're feeling triggered by your children's reaction, if it's bringing up guilt, if it's bringing up shame, if you're feeling angry and rageful because they're not listening or they're not doing what you're asking, or even if you're trying to support them in emotional well-being and you're like, they're not even interested. I'm trying to teach them how to feel their emotions and they don't want to. That can be really frustrating too. So all of that is a sign and an opportunity to really lean in to your own sense of self and start looking at where is this rage and frustration and anger and maybe sadness and feelings of abandonment really being triggered in you that you're repressing still, that you're not actually allowing to come to the surface, because this is actually what they are, you know, what they are here to show us. This resonates so much. My 7-year-old son has been struggling more these past few weeks with his emotions. Yeah, we're taking each day as it comes, lots of reassurance and allowing the emotions to flow. Understanding of why they're appearing. Yes, I love that. I can't see anyone's names, I'm afraid, because I haven't got my phone. So I'm just seeing you pop up as Facebook users. But oh yeah, going through this at the moment with my kids, especially my 5-year-old with his anger. Yes. His school has advised to get him checked for ADHD. Yeah. I said, no, it doesn't need a label. Yes, it isn't his emotions and he needs strategies to help him move through in a healthy way. Yes, so true. And look, the same with my little Belle, you know, she's not formally diagnosed, but I know that technically that's what the issue is. And also know that so many of the children right now are going to have those labels because, of course, the behaviors they're displaying are not, quote unquote, normal. They don't fit in a classroom. You know, they don't fit into the matrix conditioning, the framework that we have available right now, which is for children to sit still, follow, listen, don't think, don't be creative, stay in the box and do as you're told. Any of our starseed kids that are struggling with that, of course, they're going to be labeled with ADHD or ASD or any of the other spectrum disorders, because there's no other way for the outside world yet to understand them or control them, because there aren't other alternatives. And, you know, having the label, not having the label, for me personally, I have found it useful to know the way Bella's brain is working, because I've done the research about PDA to be like, oh, okay, I get it. And now I can actually use strategies that really support her. So I can almost avoid a lot of the meltdowns because I now understand how to speak to her, how to ask her to do things. And I wouldn't know that had I not gone down the kind of more traditional label route. Although, you know, label, no label, who cares? It really doesn't matter. But I just love that because it is still hard, no matter which side of the fence you're on, whether you're a homeschooler, not a homeschooler, whether, you know, it's to do with the way the schools approach it, whether it's to do with parenting, it doesn't matter. It's just hard sometimes. But, you know, the more we can have exposure to this information, which is why I'm doing the video and why I'm sharing this, the more we can feel like, oh, there's a bigger picture to all of this. There is so much more going on than simply what we are seeing and perceiving right in front of our eyes. And so much of it really is about us as the parents coming back into ourselves to really witness our own truth, that we are oppressed. We are struggling to actually show our own emotion. And our children are like showing us how to do it, but just in a way that perhaps, you know, is a bit more dysregulated because of their age. But also remember that as parents, we didn't learn this stuff. We are like the change makers right now. You know, I've spent years developing these skills because nobody taught me this as a kid. Nobody showed me how to do these things. Yeah. Oh man, I'm sending you so much love. Yeah, it is hard. And I totally get it. And, you know, that remorse and that feeling and the you know, the emotion that comes up, let it come. Because this is exactly the point, exactly the point, that we have to show emotional maturity for our children, not hide it, not be like, oh my God, no, you know, I've got to pretend that it's all fine. We need to show them emotional expression in a way that's really positive and empowering. Emotions can be so empowering, even rage and frustration and, you know, anger and all of the, you know, sadness, guilt, they can all be empowering. Every single one of those is energy. And when we're not using them in a way that is for our best and highest good, their energy leaks. Our energy is leaking out the side all the time. But when we can actually use rage and anger in a way that can be expressed in empower us to stand up and be in our truth and our power. I actually did this with Bella this morning. She woke up in the crappiest mood. And I was like, oh, great, this is going to be good, trying to get to school. And honestly, there was not hope. She was not getting dressed. She was not getting ready. She was just completely dysregulated. And in the end, I was like, okay, what feelings have you got in your body? And she was just irritable and she couldn't properly express herself. So I said, oh, do you feel a little bit angry? She's like, meh. And I was like, okay, well, you know, do you feel a bit irritated? Meh. Couldn't even get a word out of her. So I just made up this game on the spot where I was like, hey, should we do the stamping game? Let's sing the stamping song. And so I just walked around her bedroom, stamping my feet, making up these words about how we're letting out all the anger and the irritation. And she thought it was hilarious. It took her a little while, but then she got up and she started stamping her feet. And, you know, then we did like, you know, high fives, and we were doing all sorts of things to move the anger and the irritation and frustration she was having. And I don't know what it was about. I don't know if it was about going to school. I don't know if she just was tired. She went to school. She had a great day. She came home. She's in a great mood. But I could see in that moment, we were just stuck in this emotional pocket of nothing was going to happen unless somehow I could shift the energy in that moment. That's a really great example of how to use movement to shift emotion and feelings. And it probably took me 5 minutes of, you know, doing this stamping, you know, like patting the carpet, you know, with our hands and like just expressing this whole irritation thing. And then I said to her, how do you feel now? And she was like, good. And I was like, cool, should we do a happy dance? So then we did a dance about being happy, you know, and we made it fun. And by then it was like, cool, right, let's begin the day. But that was just an intuitive hit. Like that is just something that dropped into me in that moment that, we need to move this energy, which again, I mean, all these things happen because no doubt I channeled this last week or the week before. So it's all starting to come through, these ideas, these tools. This is what intuitive parenting looks like for me. This is how I put together the programs is, I have these bits of information drop in, and then I'm like watching my own kids and seeing how they're struggling. And then I have an idea and I'm like, let's do this. And it works. And I'm like, amazing tool, but that might take me, a few months to fine tune and work it all out. And then I can create programs that show you exactly how to do it. And this is the work that I do constantly every single day. I'm doing the inner work. I'm learning and looking and putting together ideas for my own kids. So yeah, I just love that. Yeah, I'm just reading the comments. It's my biggest trigger of my own unhealed wounds. So true. Yes, all my kids are big triggers. Yes, they are, because they chose you and you chose them. It's just perfectly divine. Like this is exactly what they're here for. Yeah, they're so beautifully amazing. Hard most times, but they really are here to show us how things are meant to be. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that is, what I wanted to share, was just talking about, this concept that they really are here to shift this emotional baggage, and to really shine a light on ourselves, to start to express this emotion in a way that is going to be really positive and empowering. So if anybody wants to get more information about that, please contact me, because we've got programs. We're launching our Intuitive Family Accelerator right now. The next round begins next week. We're using this soul resonance alignment method to really drop in and lean into these stories, to these wounds, to these generational triggers that we are breaking cycles of. That is what we're here for right now. So DM me, or in YouTube, I think there's in the description, there's different ways you can get in contact. And yeah, I'd love to support you and just show you how you can actually start doing this for your kids at home. So sending you all so much love. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Mwah.